Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, February 20th, 2019. We're under snowy conditions here. Snow cancellation. Yes, snow cancellation of school. I don't know how that's going to go tomorrow. It's supposed to be like about 90 degrees tomorrow. Nothing wrong with the weather around here. So welcome to another edition of Kagro in the Morning ASMR edition. And we'll have a little bit of noise in the background for you. Today, we've included for your listening pleasure, along with cereal bowl sounds, a little bit of muttering that goes along with online gaming, perhaps the occasional shriek of joy, or perhaps marking a tragedy. We will never know. And the squeak of a desk chair that has developed over the last couple of days. Not mine, although mine squeaks a little bit too. But we'll add some from the background just to keep things interesting from an audio perspective. And we're ready to roll. It is a Wednesday. As I said, snowy conditions, no indication that it's going to affect the broadcast any, unless I throw the chair through the window over here, and then it would really affect things. Greg Dworkin lining up his raft of stories for the morning. We'll see whether Joan can make it this Wednesday morning. I hope so. It's been a while since we've spoken to her. And plenty to catch up on. In fact, the morning's roundup of articles, including one from, I don't know if it's in Greg's roundup or not, one from NBC noting that under the weight and volume of continuing Trumpland scandal, it was hard to pause adequately and take note of three new scandals that cropped up yesterday. Not all of them are absolutely brand new, but they're at least new angles on old scandals. So much, so heavy, in fact, is the volume and weight of all of the Trump scandals. And this was the point of the article. There are so many Trump scandals that even having a day or finding three new ones isn't extraordinary, any one of which they said in another administration would dominate headlines for days. There's barely batting an eyelash at the three brand new ones. And we know this to be the case because they forgot that there was a fourth one. I don't know by what criteria they were including these three on their list and not including new developments on Wilbur Ross's continuing scandals yesterday. And it may very well be that they do have some sort of criteria, and this one just didn't meet it. But Wilbur Ross, this was a story that we've all seen already, but there was a new development. And I guess the ethics, whatever's left of the ethics folks inside the administration have come to the conclusion that, yes, Wilbur Ross absolutely positively did lie on his disclosure forms and said publicly that he had sold certain shares of some company or another, and I'm sure we could dig into which one it is in case you want the actual details. But Wilbur Ross did, in fact, say publicly that he had sold off these assets when he had not, which is a pretty basic violation, I would say, of the ethical standards when you're supposed to disclose these things and supposed to divest yourself of shares that would otherwise constitute a conflict of interest, and instead of selling them off, you actually keep them so that you also keep the conflict of interest and pocket the money in dividends and whatever else comes along with the ownership of the shares anyway. So we'll look that one up just so we have it on the record and we can share it with you. Many stories already lined up from Greg. Let's see. Justice behind the scenes. Good morning, Justice. Noting as usual, as he does, usually out of view of all of the rest of you, lets us know what's on his mind by telling us that all the signals are rolling correctly, but also add some editorial comment to it. And this one was an interesting one today. Let's just add this one into the mix. The Saudis, he notes, couldn't bring America to its knees after 9/11, so Trump thinks maybe some nukes will help. That was one of the biggest stories of the day yesterday. the, I guess, further information developing in the form of investigations on Capitol Hill now that Democrats have taken control of the House, in various investigative committees coming to the conclusion not only that in the early days of the administration and during the transition, that notorious spy Michael Flynn, who later briefly became Trump's national security advisor, was wrapped up in fact, totally consumed by an effort we've described on the air before to sell nuclear power technology to the Sauds. That's how we now refer to Saudi Arabia. We're pretending that it's a country we're selling it to. I think undermines the disastrous effects that a sale like that can have. Even if you think of them as a country, you probably can recognize the potentially disastrous effect of leaving nuclear technology in their hands. But if you really want to isolate the problem and magnify the issues, you just think about the chaos that might ensue from a proposal that the United States government fortify with nuclear technology some rich family's compound, perhaps in Florida, perhaps in Abu Dhabi, I don't know, wherever you want to put it, but selling nuclear technology and nuclear capabilities and the sort of nuclear technology that could, of course, lead to the development, at least, of primitive nuclear weapons, a dirty bomb, if nothing else, to just some rich family that wanted to have it on its property, because that's all we're talking about when we're talking about Saudi Arabia. And I guess the big developments in the last day or so was that they're still pushing this plan. They've arrested the spy. They've convicted him, not of the espionage yet, but of lying to investigators. But he's out of the picture. But as it turns out, the plan, to no one's surprise, survives the arrest of Michael Flynn and apparently has been pushed as recently as the last couple of weeks inside the Oval Office. They just won't rest until they create a nuclear Middle East, which just, I think, really strikes most people as a dangerous and foolish idea, but I guess not the Trumps. They love it. I don't know why. I'm not certain what they think they're getting out of it besides cash, but does anything else really matter to these guys? Probably not. All right, Greg Dworkin is here. I don't know if it's snowing in Connecticut, but it should be. It feels like it should be. If it's snowing here,
not yet.
You should have it too.
About 4 o'clock today, it'll start.
Okay, so the kids in your area are in school, and they'll probably even go tomorrow.
Well, see, here's the problem: is that you can get them there, but might not be able to get them home. So I think they're at school this morning. I haven't checked. My kids aren't that age, right. So I don't know yet.
All right. Well, look around. Send Abby out. Maybe she'll figure it out. She'll find the kids, I'm sure. Give her a sock to smell, and I don't know. All right, send her out. Okay.
So the thing is, again, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stories. We're going to talk a little bit about state politics just because I don't want to forget it.
Right.
North Carolina 9 and what's going on in Virginia. But it is impossible with the discussion about nuclear material being funneled to the Middle East. It is impossible to really get your mind around that story, wrap your hands around that story, and leave out Jared Kushner in whatever role he had.
Yes, right. He's supposed to be running the Middle East, so that's why it's impossible to leave him out.
Yeah. So, he hasn't been mentioned yet, but, that's on the table. But,
right.
We'll get to that. I mean, it's like third on the list of important stories. But this being Wednesday, of course, it's the day before Roger Stone goes to jail.
Oh, yeah? All right.
Well, that judge I don't think was happy about him, putting an Instagram picture of her with a target next to her.
No, even though it would indicate that he would miss.
Right. I mean, it was off-center, but so is he.
True. Okay.
Right. So anyway, there's a new poll from Virginia, Ipsos Center for Politics poll of Virginia. That's Larry Sabato's shop.
All right.
Northam approval is weak, but Virginians not demanding resignation.
Okay.
The belief that Fairfax, the lieutenant governor, should resign is a little stronger, but still mixed.
Okay.
And public is not supportive of impeaching anybody. And I didn't even have time to look and see what they thought about the Mark Herring, the attorney general, who would be third in line. But basically, voters are saying this is all terrible, but there's no way we're going to let Republicans run this place.
Yeah, well, that's I would imagine they would come to that conclusion, and maybe that's why Harris isn't even included in all. Herring, sorry, it's my own guy. And
Harris is the guy down in North Carolina 9.
Right, he's on my radar. Yeah, okay. Anybody who starts with H, you're all out. I mean, right. Except that makes Kamala Harris a problem. Okay, well, let's be hypocritical. She's the Harris.
But the voters of Virginia are like sensible people, so I think they get what's going on. And I'm reminded, of course, of Missouri and Eric Greitens and the fact that right after that huge scandal, what happened is that they went ahead and elected Josh Hawley, and it's still a Republican state.
Yeah, and he's got his own scandals.
Meanwhile, back in North Carolina 9, there were hearings. And there's a whole lot of shenanigans going on there about leaking early votes and stealing votes and stuff like that. They hope to get everything wrapped up by yesterday. In fact, they're not going to get it wrapped up until tomorrow.
Oh.
But it seems pretty clear that they were trying to steal votes. The question today, I think today is the day that the actual candidate is going to wind up testifying. And so far, the people who were in charge of the shenanigans say, well, the candidate didn't know anything about it. He just hired us, and I hired this other guy, and I didn't know about what he was doing. So it's all like, I don't know, his fault, and he won't testify, so nobody knows. Okay. And then we have to decide, because this is the North Carolina Election Board, we have to decide what to do with all this information.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll see what they're going to do. I guess first they have to get Dallas Woodhouse to stop vomiting. I think he's done.
I think he's done vomiting. But, he's not done spreading all sorts of nonsense. He earlier had said, so this is on the public record, if anybody leaked early voting data, that would besmirch and besmear those aren't the words he used, the whole integrity of the election, and we'd have to have a new election.
Yes.
And one of the accusations is that early votes leaked. And, of course, he says, well, there's no proof that anything happened, therefore you should certify Mark Harris.
Yes, he's fully recovered now. He
so
was
he's
the guy
recovered.
who
Don't worry
said
about
that
him.
He was
he's
sick to
over
his stomach.
it, whatever it was.
Yeah. No, I think he was, didn't he tweeted some, I'll find it. He literally vomited. He was so sick to his stomach by the prospect of cheating going on from Republicans that he had thrown up and he could barely recover. But now he's fine, and he's throwing up on us instead. Excellent. All right, vomiting forth his particular brand of Republican BS. Got it. Back to normal.
All right. So anyway, while that's going on at state level, at national level,
that's it. No more states.
There's quite a number of big stories, and one of the big ones that people have been talking about all day yesterday and all morning is this one from the New York Times. Intimidation, pressure, and humiliation inside Trump's 2-year war on the investigations encircling him. President Trump's efforts have exposed him to accusations of obstruction of justice as Robert S. Mueller III, Bobby Three Sticks, the special counsel, finishes his work. And it's a rather damning description of Matthew Whitaker here.
Oh, yeah.
As federal prosecutors in Manhattan gathered evidence late last year about Trump's role in silencing women with hush payments, Mr. Trump called Matthew G. Whitaker, his newly installed attorney general, with a question. He asked whether Jeff Berman, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York and a Trump ally, could be put in charge of the widening investigation, according to several American officials with direct knowledge of the call. Mr. Whitaker, who had privately told associates that part of his role at the Justice Department was to jump on a grenade for the president, knew he couldn't put Mr. Berman in charge because Mr. Berman had already recused himself. So the president soured on Whitaker, as he often does. But the problem is that Whitaker testified to Congress that he had no such knowledge of any sort of conversation like that.
Yes.
So he lied to Congress, and people who lie to Congress commit felonies.
Oh, well, he didn't have knowledge. So the acting
attorney general was committing a felony when he did that.
We'll see. Yeah, people used to tend to slip away on these things and come back and tell us things like, I said I didn't have any knowledge of it, and I really don't have any knowledge of it.
Yeah, I don't understand anything about this.
Yeah,
I'm really stupid.
People say I did it, but that doesn't mean I knew what I was talking about.
Right. And so the article goes on to document in one place, which is helpful, the extent of even more sustained, more secretive assault by Mr. Trump on the machinery of federal law enforcement Interviews with dozens of current and former government officials, as well as a review of confidential White House documents, reveal numerous unreported episodes in a 2-year drama. And then Trump says, well, the Times never reached out to me about this story. And Maggie Haberman on Twitter said, well, he's lying because we did. And that's the word she used. He's just flat out lying about that.
Well, that's good. That's useful, helpful that he's just come right out and say it. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
We'll see.
Here's the nut graph, as they say in the trade.
Oh.
The story of Mr. Trump's attempts to defang the investigations has been voluminously covered in the news media to such a degree that many Americans have lost track of how unusual his behavior is. But fusing the strands reveals an extraordinary story of a president who has attacked the law enforcement apparatus of his own government like no other president in history, and who has turned the effort into an obsession. Mr. Trump has done it with the same tactics he once used in his business empire, demanding fierce loyalty from employees, applying pressure tactics to keep people in line, and protecting the brand himself at all costs. Sounds like a RICO investigation to me. And then separately, another story, the New York Times has Trump has publicly attacked the Russia investigation more than 1,100 times. And, has the attacks on the Russia investigation are way more than his attacks on Hillary Clinton even. Way more than Comey, way more than the Obama administration, way more than the news media.
Way more than any of other things he's supposed to do as president. He's got a lot of time for this.
That, of course, while NPR reported, as we started to discuss, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released an interim report based on multiple whistleblowers who say that the Trump administration is rushing to transfer sensitive U.S. nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia in violation of federal law. So those are the big three stories. That's why Wilbur Ross was only a fourth, so I hope we have room for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, why? It's actually less letters to type 4 than it is 3. They could count correctly. I don't know why they left it out.
They could do that. Scott Stedman, who's an investigative journalist in The Guardian and The Atlantic, writes, Occam's razor. Something really bad happened between Trump, his inner circle, and Russia during the 2016 campaign, and that's why everybody's lying about it.
Just Russia, eh? All right.
Well, that's just Russia. Of course, there's the stuff about Saudi Arabia. They haven't really started to lie about it because people haven't really started to delve into that.
Okay. Well, whatever you do, you should mark the words of Jesse Lee, who tweeted probably about a year and a half ago. Mark my words. He actually used those words, so I marked them, so I know. We're going to find out that something really terrible happened in that trip to Saudi Arabia by Trump and Kushner and the other secret Trump Kushner, or rather just Kushner the second time visit, and he brings that up every once in a while, and you should be marking those words. You don't know if you have to mark them more than once. It doesn't specify in the tweet.
Yeah, just so
but
if
you've got them marked. Keep them marked.
You should pin the orb to the top of your Twitter feed so you can just take a look at it on a periodic basis.
Right. Always a good idea. Okay. Pin the orb.
Anyway,
short and sweet.
So how is all of this playing? Paul Waldman has a piece. I have this in the Pundit Roundup, not in the list of things I sent
Paul, give me the piece.
All right.
He's over here.
Paul Waldman. Waldman.
Yes, come in here.
Vaguely familiar. Here we go. Let's see. There it is.
Come on, Paul.
President Trump is dragging Republicans down with him, and as we reach November 2020, we could see a repeat of 2018 with Trump insisting that political victory will be his if only he tells a few more lurid stories of immigrant crime and holds a few more rallies so his rabid supporters can chant build the wall or finish the wall or paint the wall or whatever he decides the latest slogan should be.
Stucco the wall.
Despite all evidence pointing toward defeat. Should that happen, Republicans whose own necks are on the line will wonder whether they might have done anything to prevent being taken down with him, but by then it'll be too late. In fact, it probably already is. This on the heels of a different NPR story. In 6 in 10 disapprove of Trump's declaration of a national emergency. Nearly 6 in 10 also don't believe there's an emergency at the southern border, and the president is misusing the presidential authority. They believe his decision should be challenged in court. Lee Miringoff, director of the Marist Institute for Public Opinion, says all things related to the declaring of a national emergency, the president is striking out in the court of public opinion. He's maintaining his base and little else. Also from the poll, Ryan Struck points out 74% of millennials and Gen Z say they disapprove of Trump's national emergency versus 24% who approve. So I interpret that as winning the future one steel slat at a time. And in fact, Trump is doing for the national GOP what Pete Wilson did for the California GOP, and it's happening right before our eyes. He's losing the youngs.
The youngs, the avocado crowd.
Us being olds.
That's because avocados from Mexico are such a huge hit during the Super Bowl, etc.
Yeah, I suppose. Now, while all that's going on.
Yes.
While all that's going on. The real question is many questions. One of the real questions is, so what's Trump's end game with this national emergency? Does he win in court or does he not? In the, eventually he'll win side is Dan Dresner writing in the Washington Post, a man who was too weak occupies an office that is too strong, and that he's got a decent chance of winning on this, and he's got a decent chance enough of winning in 2020. He's the outlier here. The economy is still strong, and this time he's running as the incumbent. Democrats will have plenty of opportunities to shoot themselves in the foot over the next 18 months. More about that after the break. And if they don't, Howard Schultz might shoot them instead. Unlikely. 2016 should have taught observers that it's possible for a man with low approval ratings to get to win an election. And if Trump is reelected, all this talk of weakness needs to be discarded. Yes, he's weak, disorganized, yada, yada. But the office he occupies is so strong that even a weak-minded fool can leave lasting scars. To which I and others responded, yeah, but that's not the whole story at all. My point was, in telling you not to assume things, this assumes many things, like there's no Mueller effect,
sure.
Like these scandals we were just talking this morning doesn't matter. We even left out the McCabe story, which is a huge one, with McCabe saying that, in his view, Trump might well have been a Russian asset. And that's playing in various and sundry circles. So you also assume the economy stays good, that the trade wars go fine, there's no foreign policy disasters, no wars, the tax plan doesn't have blowback, that Democrats will automatically beat themselves. I mean, on paper, you can make a case, but sure. I'm not having it because I saw what happened in 2018.
Yeah, there's still a substantial chance that Trump says out loud, I shouldn't be reelected in 2020. You shouldn't vote for me. I don't need to win.
I don't need this.
Yeah, I don't know.
He does, because as soon as he's in jail.
Yes, I mean, maybe he gets a bad bill of health first and says, gonna die. What's the difference?
Right. Historian Josh Chaffetz looks at Dan Dresner's piece and says, okay, that's fine, but part of the deal is that even if Trump, quote, wins, end quote, in court, and that's assuming that Chief Justice Roberts decides to side with Trump. Like, all of these are 5-4 decisions, and Roberts is in Trump's camp. Roberts may well look at it and say that the court can't afford that. So we don't know. I'm not hanging my hat on that. The odds are that Trump eventually does lose all the way to the Supreme Court and then wins there, just like he did with the travel ban.
That's right. He does.
But it takes so long that the wall doesn't get built before 2020, so he can't claim it as a notch on his belt that he succeeded in.
That's right. Big belt, too. Plenty of room for notches.
Plenty of room for notches. So, and my other point is, always remember the courts are people who read newspapers. Armando will agree with that. They're not impartial actors. And if it turns out that all this stuff is as unpopular as the NPR Marist poll says it is, there's a lot of impetus to suddenly find reason to disagree with it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. We got no choice but to wait and see for that one. No one inclined to predict his impeachment in the next. Well, I guess I would say in the next 2 years.
But this isn't even impeachment. It's just, succeeding in this one narrow area. Here's another piece from the Marist poll, which brings that home.
Success. Yes.
Okay. Non-college white men.
Non-college white men voted Trump 71-23. Okay.
They say the national emergency makes them less likely to support him again, 47-41.
Huh. Do they know what that means?
They do.
Okay.
And so the analysis here is Trump's national emergency looks like a 2020 loser. That's the way it's being analyzed by Philip Bump in the Washington Post.
Okay. What a
new
loser.
PBS Marist poll shows 6 in 10 Americans oppose it, including nearly every demographic group.
Why?
So, because it's a stupid idea, that's why.
Well, so what do they care? 71 whatever. The voting for Trump was a stupid idea. What's changed?
Well, what's changed is that I didn't get my tax return.
Oh, yeah, that I can believe.
As you pointed out on Twitter, I saw the other day. He's supposed to hurt these other people. He's hurting the wrong people.
Yeah, well, that's their words too. They absolutely have been open about that. He's hurting the wrong people. It wasn't supposed to hit me. It's the same. What was it? Leopards eating faces issue.
The leopard eating faces party, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
I never thought. Yeah. All right. Well, that could be changing things. Why they won't say it's the taxes, or maybe they weren't asked about taxes. They just hung it on the emergency.
Now, the break's coming up in a minute, and after the break, we'll talk a little bit about the Democratic presidential primary politics.
All right.
But I do have to point out before we move any further, there was a big announcement yesterday. Apparently, Larry David is going to have a really, really good, couple of weeks now.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Yeah. Right. That's true. That's bread and butter for him lately.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it hasn't been all that late. It's a couple of years off now. He should be ready to go again.
Right.
Okay.
But one of the more interesting pieces that has shown up is from Politico here. Sustained and ongoing disinformation assault targets Democratic presidential candidates. A coordinated barrage of social media attacks suggests the involvement of foreign state actors. And there's 4 names that come to mind right away. I guess they assume they're the front runners. The main targets appear to be Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Beto O'Rourke, and Bernie Sanders.
Okay.
Or the most prominent announced or prospective candidates for president.
Yes.
So there's trolls out there claiming to be Bernie supporters who are obnoxious, but there's also people attacking Bernie. And so just be aware of all of that and don't pay too much attention to what you see on social media.
Okay, we can try and do that. You can assume that 90% of what you see is coming from, it's obnoxious, is coming from trolls. A pretty good contingent of obnoxious people out there for almost every one of the candidates. We'll dig down deep and find the most genuine obnoxious people and share their comments with you. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, with a brand new interruption, though it's still aimed at saying thank you to all of you who are supporters of the show. We've made a lot of progress. When we first started this campaign, fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners were donating to help keep us on the air, and now that's down to about 1 in 15, but we've got a long way to go. Remember, it won't take much. Our average monthly donation is currently about $7, for which you're getting 2 hours of great news and entertainment 5 days a week. What's that, 70 cents an hour? That's a pretty good deal. But as a wage, well, I think Democrats would be against that. But if we all put our 70 cents together, or even half of us, that'd really be something. And my kids could go to college. Now, that's not all on you. But remember, patreon.com, Patreon.com, is there to make it easy. You can find us there by searching Kagro X, or David Waldman, or Kagro in the Morning, or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right there where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your continuing support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Greg Dworkin's still with us we'll go on from there. Whether it's another full segment, that's fine. I'll put my feet up and let you continue. We did get a lot of news into that first segment. Let's stretch things out a little bit. What's up next?
So it's interesting. One of my Twitter friends is a political scientist, Rachel Beitkofer, and she had a New York Times opinion piece entitled "Why Trump Will Lose in 2020," which explains the same fundamentals that drove voter behavior in 2018 already predict Trump's defeat. And that's my point, really. You can argue back and forth about 2016, the black swan, and what it means, but the fact of the matter is 2018 happened and showed us a lot of things. So Rachel right now is having a discussion. I directed her to Arliss Bunny. Arliss had a question about how easy it is to win as a Democrat if you only have the coasts where we are strong, and you can't. You have to have the Midwest or part of the South, one or the other. And Rachel says to Arliss in discussing this, "I have great news for you. The eventual nominee, no matter who it is, will be running on an entire platform of boldly progressive undeliverables that will nonetheless make you feel really inspired." And so that's a lot about what primaries are about, whether it's Medicare for all or a Green New Deal. There'll be stuff that suggests that or a family fun pack, as we were talking about the other day. There's going to be a lot of great things that are suggested that may or may not get anywhere near committee markup.
Yes.
but they're important to put down there in the discussion for a variety of reasons, not least of which is shifting the Overton window left so that we talk about left-leaning policies. However, they wind up getting implemented in the end. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. Arguing about universal health care and the best way to achieve it is a good thing, not a bad thing. Basically, the Democratic Party is going to wind up being the party of ideas, and the Republican Party is going to be the party of get off my lawn. And it doesn't really matter who the Democratic nominee is. They're all very similar. And there's a fascinating piece. I have this graph in the pundit roundup today from Gallup, which basically points out that Democrats are unified on key issues, including guns, taxes, labor unions, and global warming. I mean, however we start this Democratic primary, however divisive it gets about who your favorite candidate is, fact of the matter is that we pretty much agree among Democrats what policy should be.
Okay.
Right? We all agree with universal health care, all meaning like 80, 85%. How you get there, of course, the devil's in the details. But the goals are pretty much clear. Now, Dan Hopkins, a political scientist, has a very interesting piece here that I think is well worth pointing out, talking about Bernie's announcement yesterday. He says, with Senator Sanders throwing his hat in the ring, some data and observations from his 2016 primary campaign. As with any political coalition of any meaningful size, Sanders' 2016 supporters weren't all alike. Sanders' 2016 campaign combined voters on the left with more disaffected anti-establishment voters. I wrote about the coalition for 538, and he's got an article. Does Bernie Sanders represent the future of the Democratic Party? Stop me with, this sounds familiar. The times are uncertain with a long-running war abroad and a sense of rising division at home. But the point here is that those disaffected anti-establishment voters aren't necessarily Democrats. So they have no compunction whatsoever in attacking the party, whereas left-leaning Democrats are really uncomfortable with that. And so a lot of this stuff, assuming no trolls, which is a big assumption because there are, but just okay, this is a real person, we're having a real discussion here. The anti-establishment piece of Bernie's support is actually pretty big. And so he writes, take Sanders' 2016 victory in West Virginia. That was in a Democratic primary. Sanders did better in the places where Keith Judd had done better, running against Obama in 2012. The ultimate protest candidate, Judd, was a federal inmate who won greater than 40% of the West Virginia vote in 2012.
That doesn't really reflect very well on them.
No, but the point is that was obviously a protest vote.
Clearly, a protest you couldn't have where Keith Judd was.
Right. Consistent with Sanders tapping into disaffection, Sanders also did better among those who termed themselves independents but leaned Democratic than he did with strong Democrats. With strong Democrats, Clinton got 68% and Sanders 26% by self-identified party affiliation from Institute for the Study of Citizens and Politics, 538. And if you're an independent Democrat, Clinton got 33% and Sanders got 43%.
I see.
If you were a weak Democrat, Clinton got 52%, Sanders 26%. So there's a whole segment of Bernie's vote that was anti-establishment. And so what Dan Hopkins writes is there's more evidence that while Sanders benefited from being anti-Clinton in 2016, remember all the Wall Street speech stuff?
Yeah.
He was also preferred by many voters because of his policy positions. So, and those are the left-leaning Democrats. So the question is, moving forward, how much of that left-leaning core can he hold in a very different 2020 Democratic field where everybody agrees on policy and it's all left-leaning compared to where the party was 4 and 8 years ago? And in a multi-candidate field, will the anti-establishment Democratic vote coalesce around a single candidate? And if so, will it be Bernie? My guess is that this will be tough. In 2016, Clinton was a quasi-incumbent, so therefore it was easier as a protest vote to run against the incumbent. And now we don't have one.
I see.
But as he ends, which I think is important, we will see. We don't know. So I think it's important to remember that a lot of the people that were backing Bernie on social media, which is not the real world,
yes,
were sincere. Some were trolls. Some hate Democrats and liked Bernie and were perfectly happy to attack any other candidate because any other candidate would have come from the Democratic Party. And that dynamic is still there, and we're going to see some of that. Just, to prepare yourself.
I guess so. I don't know how much credence it lends the position that they thought they were taking, but we will see it.
Well, they're not going to lay out a position. They're just going to attack. So I just, want to know. I want people to know where everybody's coming from, so you can prepare yourself. That's all.
Yes. Well, it's an interesting juxtaposition of stories. One about the nebulousness of primary campaign season platforms, and the next one about, sort of the flip side of it. I'm not going to accept anybody's platform. I'm simply going to make an anti-vote of some kind, and it doesn't matter what.
And then the third piece, which fits into that, is, by the way, foreign national trolling on social media is ramping up, and it's against 4 specific candidates because they seem to be the front runners.
I guess so. Any other prisoners running this year?
I like that. I don't know. Maybe that guy's going to run again. He's not doing anything.
Presumably. I mean, unless he's been released, he's tanned, maybe not tanned, only about an hour a day to work on that. Rested, though, and I suppose possibly ready. Okay. We'll keep an eye out for Keith Judd,
right?
Harbinger of doom.
Now, here's a funny one, just to put things in perspective in terms of passions. Seth Maskus writing about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Uh-oh, no way.
And he points out, she's cast nearly 90 roll call votes.
Wow.
And still has a DW nominate score of minus .123.
What?
And it's freaking me out. It's like, what if she's going to be voting like Evan Bayh and just has been trolling us the entire time?
Interesting. Okay. I'm off the top of my head, I don't know what's this metric?
The DW nominate?
Yeah.
That's how liberal, how conservative are you that the political scientists use. They're very fond of it. They take all your votes and then they put into this little algorithm, and it tells you where you stand on the scale.
Okay. And all right. Well, the first, I don't know, the first votes in any new Congress are going to be a weird, atypical bunch of votes, especially when the House turns over to different partisan control. I don't know how much you can make out of that. But okay.
He's just teasing us, but I did think it was kind of funny.
All right. Then I'll laugh about it.
Oh, my God, the first thing she's going to do is burn the whole place down. Actually not. The first thing she's going to do is, for her first 100 votes, she's going to vote like Evan Bayh, right? So, calm down.
I guess so. But that's actually cause for alarm among her supporters, I would think.
Well, he just thought it was amusing, and I do too.
Okay.
And, and again, it gets to this whole thing of, oh, my God, she's the Democratic Socialist. What does that mean? It means that more times than not, she's been voting like Evan Bayh.
Okay. That's
so what's in a name? What's in a label?
A couple of letters, typically.
What's in a rose? Any other name would vote just like Evan Bayh.
Yeah. All right. Well, nominate is is an acronym. Nominal 3-step estimation. That's a terrible acronym.
Well, nobody knows it as that.
Nominal, I guess, takes up the first nomin or nomina.
Right. It's one of the ways to tell whether you're a liberal or a conservative based on your vote.
Yeah. Nominate.
And again,
awful.
it's commonly used by political scientists to say, okay, well, look, you won't see the DW nominate number. They won't talk about the methodology. What they will say is, I've looked at her votes, and she's to the left of this other person. How do they get that? What does that mean?
Okay.
This is how they do that.
That's interesting. It's good to know what quantifiable methods they're looking at so that we can figure out. Well, I don't know what the DW is for. Do you know that?
They've changed it over the years.
Oh.
It started as nominate, and then there was a D nominate, and then there was a W nominate, and now they combine them all, dynamic and weighted.
Nominate. Oh, okay. Dynamic, weighted, nominate. I got it. That's the dynamic and weighted part makes sense. Nominate is the worst acronym I've ever seen, honestly.
Right. The citation for the Political Methodology Career Achievement Award says that one can say perfectly correctly without any hyperbole, the modern study of the U.S. Congress would be simply unthinkable without this nominate legislative roll call voting score. It's produced data that entire bodies of our discipline and many in the press have relied on to understand the U.S. Congress. So everybody uses it, even if they don't talk about it. I just talked about.
Got it. All right. Well, for all that, I don't think we understand the U.S. Congress very well. But there's some data now, so there you have it. Now you know what you don't know.
Now you know what you don't know.
Shoot.
Okay.
All right.
So let's see other stats. I just thought that was interesting, and leads to interesting places here. Meanwhile, Trump is not only freaking out because everybody says he lies, and he's railing and ranting about the Russians and everybody with the walls closing in on him. And by the way, he also says Dan Coats is not loyal. After the National Intelligence Director gave congressional testimony that contradicted many of Trump's statements on security threats. That's in the Washington Post.
Okay.
And all those people at the Munich conference who were security conference who were noting that Vice President Mike Pence got a moment of silence. That's what Sarah Sanders is calling it.
Is that true? I thought that was a joke.
Yeah, it was a moment of silence out of her Smith. I don't know. Did she really say it or was it a joke? You can't tell anymore.
Doesn't matter. No one
Could well
knows.
have been a joke. In any case, Mike Pence mentioned greetings. I'm here to greet you from our fearless leader, Donald Trump. And there was a moment of silence afterwards.
Cricket.
So as people have pointed out here, and this is Josh Rogan, conservative-leaning columnist at the Washington Post, says that, the real meetings that take place at these events aren't the ones in public, they're the ones in private. The true insiders know the real diplomatic action was not in the public sessions, in the private rooms, where the bilateral meetings and diplomatic interactions unfolded. Several members of the U.S. congressional delegation told me the most consequential of these meetings was the one in which lawmakers confronted Acting Secretary Shanahan, Defense Secretary, about Trump's withdrawal from Syria.
Oh? Which lawmakers, ours or theirs?
Senator Lindsey Graham, the leader of the main congressional delegation, pressed Shanahan on whether he was telling European officials in Munich that the full U.S. withdrawal from Syria was a done deal. Are you telling our allies that we're going to go zero by April 30th, he asked Shanahan. Yes, that's been our direction from the president, Shanahan replied. Well, that's the dumbest effing thing I ever heard, Graham responded. Graham then launched into a list of consequences he feared would result from a precipitous U.S. withdrawal from Syria without a follow-up plan. Islamic State would return, Turkey would attack Kurdish forces, Iran would gain the advantage, and Graham asked Shanahan if he disagreed, and Shanahan said, well, that could happen.
Okay.
Well, if the policy is going to be that we're leaving by April 30th, I am now your adversary and not your friend, Graham told the acting Pentagon chief, according to Graham, and several other lawmakers confirmed this exchange.
And that happened in Munich?
And that happened in Munich.
Why couldn't they have that here?
I don't know. Shanahan got a chorus of voices that basically said this is not going to work. There's a bipartisan resolve not to let this happen. And you need to send a message back to the president that's a combined unified view. It's not the way to go, and he should change course. Senate Foreign Relations Committee ranking Democrat Bob Menendez told me after the meeting, Shanahan basically said he got the message.
Okay.
And the Europeans aren't going to commit troops to Syria until or unless Trump commits to leaving some troops there first. So he's basically putting pressure, and they are putting pressure on Trump to, in public, really talk about what his plan is. Of course, he doesn't have plans. That's going to be difficult. So he's going to rather have a rally and rail about the investigations.
Yeah, more than likely. I mean, I think he thinks he's addressed it publicly. He said the other day, ISIS is going to be gone in 24 hours or something like that. And so, for his base, it's gone. The wall's built, ISIS is gone, and Syria's done. I'm surprised that I wonder whether it won't be the opposite outcome, whether Europe would commit troops only on the condition that we weren't there.
Right. So anyway, that's the best I could do for summarizing everything that happened in this busy news cycle as best I could.
Your theory of everything.
This is Greg Dworkin speaking to my good friend David Waldman, Kagro in the morning. Do you have that NBC piece on the three scandals? I have it if you don't.
I think I did find it and put it away, but why don't you send it over?
There it is.
And, okay, boop, it made a little noise and everything. Okay.
Yeah, and everything. All right.
Excellent.
But tomorrow's Thursday. We'll be back.
Good.
And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.
All right. And hopefully we'll be out from under the snow at that point. Although I have a feeling we'll be delaying our opening anyway, so we'll have more ASMR or AMSR, I forget what the initials are for that, for you tomorrow. Thanks again. And I'm going to study further the DW Nominate scores. Thanks, Greg. and we'll check in with you again tomorrow and see if we can find an even worse acronym for all that. It really is horrific, honestly, as acronyms go. I don't know if I made that entirely clear. I made my opinion clear, I think, but I don't know if I made it clear exactly what it's supposed to stand for, which is why it's so bad. Let me just scroll back down there, clear that up. The nominate part, dynamic weighted, DW, that's a fine acronym. It doesn't spell, and actually it's a terrible acronym because it's not a name for it. That's just the initials for dynamic and weighted. It doesn't spell anything. But nominate is a stretch, to say the least. It's an acronym, again, for nominal three-step estimation. And if that rubbed you the wrong way the first time because it didn't make any sense, now that we slow down, we can see exactly why it doesn't. Three-step estimation. Where's the step in all this? There's only 3 words if you count it the way they do. They hyphenated three-step. So nominal, three-step estimation. So out of the word nominate, Nominate, spelled just like it sounds, just like the word nominate. Nomina, Nomina, is all from nominal. So in other words, there's only one other letter in nominal. They just chopped the L off of nominal and then glued that onto TE. T for three-step. It's a TH sound, and abbreviating it as a T is already a one-off. That's a problem. But nomina, and then T for three-step, and then E, estimation. That's the only one of these things that fits with standard acronym formation out of this whole thing. So really, nominal, three-step estimation. Nomina, three-step estimation. So I don't know. That's one of the worst acronyms I've ever heard, quite honestly. They really, I guess they were just trying I guess they wanted a word that sounded political science-y. So nominate kind of works for that. The scale is, I'm sure, fine all by itself. It's just that the acronym is terrible. And if you don't have one, then get rid of it. Just why can't you be just DWN? Dynamic, weighted, whatever the hell that thing is. Nominal three-step estimation. And what are the 3 steps? One wonders. All right, well, there's a whole Wikipedia article for you to look at about that if you want to ponder that particular imponderable. And you're welcome to do so. We will open up the we'll open up the lines for you there to take a look at the Wikipedia thing and try and sort it out for yourself. All right, let's see. It's nearing 10 o'clock where we'll take another break and see what's up with Joan today. And in the meantime, let's see. There's the NBC News piece, the ethically challenged 3 scandals rock Trump administration in one day. Did we hit all of the scandals, or did we just say that there were 3 of them? All right. Let's see. Let me take a look at this. You know what? As a matter of fact, as good a way of killing time as any. Do you want to discuss this thing? All right. Armando is offering to discuss the dumb thing from yesterday. Maybe we'll save that for later in case Joan comes in. We don't want to eat up any of her time. Although, these days it might be something, might be the case that we don't see her for 10, 15 minutes into the next segment. But I have a feeling that dumb thing could occupy an awful lot of time. All right. I think I got a note or two yesterday from various listeners who said, in the grand scheme of things, of course, it's very unimportant, but it was worth a little bit of time, and I think they were pretty well in agreement with the defense we gave for that. Oh, okay. Oh, look at this. I got more indications. Here we go. We got our programming notes here. Joan is tied up once again, it turns out. So, I guess we can bring in Armando after all for that. It looks like we've got some absences in the front office, the virtual front office there at Daily Coast World Headquarters. And so, let's see. Joan will be with us, but you'll have to cut it a little short. Maybe we'll see her towards the end of the program. She says, go ahead and bring on Armando. So why don't we do that just to make sure that a significant segment of the Daily Kos readership never listens to the show again because they're boycotting Armando. Okay. I think we can do it. I guess just in terms of, we'll spend a couple minutes on it. I guess we have an opening then, Armando, to discuss whatever context, I suppose, you think might help explain what was going on. I think most of us understand the context of being caught up in a severe outrage storm. But if there's anything you'd like to add to it, then by all means, go ahead and do that. I've got at the moment open, feel free to come on in then. And I've got open at the moment the Meet the Press piece from NBC News, ethically challenged 3 scandals rock Trump administration in one day. The lighting in the photo that illustrates the piece is outrageous. Trump should never have agreed to be photographed from this angle. He's backlit in where is this? Is this an outdoor rally of some kind? It looks like he's speaking in a haze of dandruff and flies, quite honestly. I don't know what's all this dust flying around his head, or whether anybody would be able to avoid looking that way if they were photographed from this angle and in this lighting, but it's particularly unflattering for Trump. That's not the point of the article. Chuck Todd, Mark Murray, and Carrie Dan insist that it is instead about how hard it is to keep up with all the alleged, interesting, that's Chuck Todd for you, the alleged scandals hitting the Trump administration. We're not even sure they're scandals, ladies and gentlemen. We're just alleging that they are. But here's what we learned in just one day. His 3 scandals were Trump asking the acting attorney general to put a Trump ally, the U.S. attorney general, or rather the U.S. attorney in New York, in charge of the Michael Cohen investigation. That's not going to work. Trump denied the story, said it's fake news. The second being the whistleblowers having told the congressional committee that efforts by former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn to transfer sensitive nuclear technology, whatever that may be, to Saudi Arabia may have violated the law, and investigators fear Trump is still considering it because it's a chance to violate the law. And the third being that the House and Senate Democrats say they've obtained evidence that a senior official at the Department of Education tried to oust the department's independent watchdog after she pushed back on an attempt to interfere in an active investigation of Secretary Betsy DeVos, according to Heidi Przyzbala. I don't think I heard a word about that one. And I did hear about Wilbur Ross, which they left off the list, which is kind of interesting. Let me just check that one out. Hill Democrats say Education Department tried to interfere and probe, remove investigator. Sounds familiar. What she's being probed for, DeVos, I'm not sure, but basically anything she does any day of her life is probably worthy of investigation. She's a public personage, by God, and a billionaire at that, and so something horrible is probably happening here. Let's just see. I'm curious. The case, in this case, Scott cites a letter. Who are we talking about here? Scott. I skipped over the intro. Bobby Scott, Democrat of Virginia, member of the House Education and Labor, chairman of the House Education and Labor Committee. So let's see. In this case, Scott cites a letter dated January 3rd, obtained from Education Department Deputy Secretary Mitchell Zais to Bruce. Who are we talking about? Again, that's the downside of not reading all the introductory material here. Sandra Bruce, the department's acting inspector general. They don't have an inspector general. It's another acting person, and that's who Bruce is. So, okay. Where were we on this one? Scott cites a letter, January 3rd, obtained from the Education Department Deputy Secretary Mitchell Zais to Acting Inspector General Bruce. In the letter, Zais wrote that he found it disturbing Bruce was proceeding with the probe of ACICS, another one we're going to have to look up, and asked her to reconsider any plan to review the department's decision to restore its accreditation. Okay, so we're getting at the heart of what's going on here. ACICS, whoever that is, has had their accreditation restored by the Education Department, and there's some question as to whether they were actually entitled to that and whether that was done above board. The acting inspector general looked into it, and a deputy secretary said, why don't you just let this one slide? Why don't you back off and stop investigating that? Apparently, Bruce, Scott said, then communicated her plans to continue the investigation and underscored the importance of maintaining independence from the department. A few weeks later, Zais notified Bruce that she would be removed from the position. So that's it in a nutshell, right? Something happened. It required investigation. The right person for the job indicated that she would investigate. The wrong person in the department said, hey, why don't you stop investigating? She said, I actually will continue investigating. And she was notified, well, we're going to have you fired. So that seems worthy of investigation as well. And I just thought I'd put that one on your radar. Okay. Let's see. We got our next break coming up, and perhaps we'll have Armando chime in if he wants. Perhaps you want to call in during the break, and we'll have you all lined up for coming back in the next segment. If not, if you've changed your mind, if you think you just want to be out of the way, or you just want to leave this for another day, that's fine. Let me know. Plenty more we could be reading, and plenty more stories to catch up on in the next segment as we wait for Joan. Okay, let's see. We're about 30 seconds away from our break here. Let's see if we can't work in one, I guess, very quick note on the entry of Bernie Sanders into the race. Everybody knows about that. The part I wanted to add is Bernie Sanders has a new campaign manager this time around. And I think that would make a significant difference, actually. Jeff Weaver, I think, displeased just about everybody with his performance as campaign manager last time around, but he's a longtime Bernie Sanders friend and political ally from Vermont. So that's what he was. But this time around, Fez Shakir actually will be his campaign manager. Many of you know him from Twitter. Many of you know him from Think Progress. Many of you know him from all sorts of things. And it's a marked improvement in, the quality of people running the show anyway. That's good news. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We got a couple minutes here as we're waiting on Joan. No rush, Joan. I know you're handling all the important stuff this morning. Armando is here to, I guess we'll handle some of the less important stuff. It's important to a lot of people on Daily Kos.
This is what we do. More of a Daily Kos issue, and if it's not anything that matters to the country, and it's fairly personal to me.
You're in it
because I'm the target of it, and that's fine. Before I get to the current, let's go through the history. You know it. In fact, you probably didn't like a lot of things I did back in the day. I've been at Daily Kos one way or another for 16 years.
That's a long time.
It's a long time, and I have a checkered history to put it mildly, so everybody knows. I didn't always behave properly by what Daily Kos wanted to be and what it wanted to be. And I had my run-ins and my tiffs, even with Marcos. But after all that, in 2011, they invited me back. And what I've tried to do, and I think I've done for the last 8 years, is not be that person at Daily Kos anymore. And that's sort of how I've handled it. In that sense, Twitter's been a godsend for me because I can be me
yes,
on
I
Twitter.
See what you mean. Okay.
And that's what I do. I do me and Twitter mostly, and I think that's fair. I'm not representing Daily Kos on Twitter. I represent me on Twitter. And I say things that I wouldn't say and don't say at Daily Kos or on this radio show. So what happens is I have a strong opinion about certain aspects of the primary that involve Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
If you follow me on Twitter, you can read them, and I will continue to express them on Twitter. What I don't do and what I won't do is discuss specific candidates in the Democratic primary at Daily Kos or on your show. So there's a bifurcation there, and I think it's a smart way for me to handle it. What happened yesterday is fans of a certain candidate didn't like what I was doing on Twitter, and in my opinion, decided the best way to counter me was to attack me at Daily Kos. I am not responding to it at all at Daily Kos or otherwise. This will be my one statement on it.
We have the exclusive.
It's just part of the whole game, you know. And look, I believe it's dishonest and inflammatory in and of itself, but that's primary season, and I'm not going to get worked up about it. And frankly, I give myself credit for maturity. Prior to 2011, I would be in there writing diaries and fighting about this stupid thing now, but I'm not going to do that out of respect to Daily Kos, out of respect to Marcos, out of respect to you. I'm just explaining my own view of how to approach this. I will be fairly active on these issues on Twitter. Mm-hmm. If you want to see what I think about that, you'll have to go there. I won't be expressing it at Daily Kos, where I will just stick to issues and the law mostly, and not, you know, I haven't even written much there. But today I wrote a diary.
Yeah, I did see it.
About Pete. I don't know how to say his last name. So I'll call him Mayor Pete.
Okay, everyone
as he sort of said, and he opened the door to a discussion of expanding the Supreme Court, which is an important issue to me. I don't expect it to happen in 2021 and maybe not even 2025. But at some point in time, I think we're going to have to come to grips with the fact that the Supreme Court has been stolen, and it has a tremendous impact on everything that people are discussing. Medicare for all, for example.
Anything you want.
Anything you want, a Supreme Court determined to thwart you will. This is not conjecture. We know what happened during the Great Depression. An activist Supreme Court decided it was going to try to stymie Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal, declared many of the laws unconstitutional on the most ridiculous of theories. You've seen that type of made-up theorizing in attempts to strike down something as, frankly, incremental as the Affordable Care Act. Mm-hmm. I have no doubt that some Professor Randy Barnett will come up with some cockamamie legal theory that the right will adopt, if necessary, to try to stymie more dramatic and comprehensive ideas, such as Medicare for all in the iteration that Bernie Sanders has proposed, which would, as we understand it, abolish private insurance. Look, if there's a very easy argument that you will see, and I don't think it's valid because regulation doesn't mean a taking, but with this Supreme Court, with some new Randy Barnett type figure coming in, they'll come up with that type of argument and say, well, fine, you can do it, but you got to pay all the health insurance companies $8 trillion for what you're taking from them. And all of a sudden, Medicare for all doesn't cost X, it costs X plus $10 trillion. And all of a sudden, oh, well, you know, how are we going to do that? Just a quick back-of-the-envelope example of why the Supreme Court and its current iteration and the fact that a seat was stolen in 2016 by Mitch McConnell isn't going away. It's going to be an issue forever. And I thank Mayor Pete for being open to the discussion. Now, he didn't endorse it. That's fine. He doesn't have to endorse it.
Oh, no? Okay.
Let's put it in the air. Let's start talking about it. Let's get all the candidates asked about it and get the idea rolling. Because so far it's just a few wackos like myself on Twitter who discuss it. I'd like to see it become a part of the conversation in the Democratic Party.
I would like to see that become part of the discussion as well. So he doesn't endorse it. That's disappointing. Not that I expected him to do so from the mayoralty of
I think
South
he
Bend,
might, after seeing the positive reaction he got, because at the end of the day, Mayor Pete is a long shot. I don't think he thinks he's going to win. He's 37 years old. He's just starting in some ways his career. He's been mayor of South Bend, which is Indiana, which is a little middling city of, well, I don't know, 200,000 people. You know, the natural next stop for that type of person is the presidency of the United States. And I don't think he's thinking of it that way. So it will be interesting if he sees potential, or whether he thinks saying it now somehow will mark him in the future and cause him trouble. Listen, I don't say these calculations in a pejorative. I think that's a legitimate approach for someone who's going to make public service his career. He does not want to disqualify himself for future high office. He's clearly got tremendous potential and tremendous talent, and how he navigates this will be interesting. But I like that he took this step, and the rest is up to us to reinforce this, at least for some of us, as a positive step. Now, I gave you that discussion to put in context what I'm going to be doing and what that discussion was about me and the primary and what happened at Daily Kos. I'm going to talk about things like what I just talked about at Daily Kos and on your radio show. I'm not going to talk about what I think about certain candidates in the Democratic primary. I am going to do that exclusively on Twitter. I am not, or if I find if I feel like I need to write in a longer form, I'll create a Medium account or what have you. I'm not going to put Daily Kos in the middle of that because of who I am, number one, and who I've been, and frankly, of what Daily Kos is. They don't want that, and I'm not going to be contributing to that. So that's what I have to say about that. In terms of the allegations, if you think they're credible, more power to you. I deign not even to respond to them.
I'm not even
because
they
are ridiculous. And if you don't think they're ridiculous, then what can I tell you?
I guess the remaining question that I have, and I'm not certain whether I have a question here from on Twitter from Jack Ox, and I'm not certain whether she's asking what your Twitter handle is so that she can follow you, or whether this is a pointed question that others raise.
It's a pointed question.
Yeah.
It's about whether I get to use Decus in my Twitter handle.
Yes.
Let's take that in parts. First of all, my Twitter handle was chosen in 2012.
Yes.
I've been out there for 7 years, and I've never spoken for the site. No one ever thought I was speaking for the site. I've said controversial things on Twitter for 7 years. Never before has anyone said he's the face of Daily Kos. That's just
I mean, I think that's a huge stretch, to say the very least.
It's a completely contrived, dishonest attack. I don't know who Jack Ox is, but Jack
I don't
Ox
know that
knows
she's
better.
actually attacking here or not, but it does raise. It at the very least raised the one question that I wanted to ask you after the first minute or so of your explanation. That's the thing that people will hang their hat on and say, well, he has Decos in his handle,
Yes.
and so therefore,
I identify who I am.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought of it
Armando
as
of Daily Kos
because I know your position there and who you are. My guess was, all right, which Armando is it? It's the one from Daily Kos, not I am Daily Kos. But people will people become confused? People who have no idea what's going on, eventually they might become confused. The ultimate fallout from all that will be what? They'll say Daily Kos officially thinks this, and Marcos will say, no, it doesn't. And then, some people will insist, yes, it still does. And the rest of the world will say, Marcos says it doesn't.
Most of the world doesn't have any clue
right.
who I am.
Most of the world has no clue what Daily Kos is either. They won't make any waves anywhere for any. And I guess ultimately,
anybody
at the
who
end of the
actually
day,
knows who I am and knows what Daily Kos is knows I don't speak for the site. This
that's
is
probably
complete dishonesty. It's rubbish. It's just a framed up attack. It doesn't. Again, I said if you take that argument seriously,
yes. Well, I like
because you want it
Yeah.
to be a serious argument, not because you actually believe it. No one has ever accused me of being the face of Daily Kos before. It's only when I attacked a certain candidate that they favor, and I didn't do it at Daily Kos.
I think this plan.
I didn't write a piece.
Right.
I didn't put anything on the front page, and they decided that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's an open
it's
tactic. People use it quite a lot, and so
renounce him.
It's okay, right?
I understand that.
Jack explains her comment. By the way, just want to see what you're saying, not attacking. I have disagreed with Marcos in the past. It's okay. So that's why I left open the possibility that she was just saying, well, what does he say? But others will certainly say, oh, I mean, if you wanted to make that attack, you would say, oh, he doesn't speak for the site, huh? What's his handle again? Then I would have a better understanding of where you're coming from.
Okay, what's his handle again? His handle is he's the Armando from Daily Kos.
Yes. Okay, so that's it. Armando, just like it sounds like with DKOS.
Armando, who posted, doesn't even post that much anymore, but posted at Daily Kos.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
Okay.
I don't even have a blue check mark, for Christ's sake.
That's true. How could you possibly speak for the site if you don't have one of those? I don't have one either, and yet I broadcast.
You don't speak for the site either, David Waldman.
I guess not. Even though it's Daily Kos Radio, I don't know.
My
I suppose you could try and
two people speak for the site at this point. One is Carolyn Fiddler, who's now the communications director at Daily Kos, and Marcus Malitzis. Occasionally, David Neer will speak for the site when they announce an endorsement. But I'm sure that's done through the process of making those choices, and Marcos authorizes him to speak for the site. And it always says Daily Kos endorses.
Rarely Armando D. Kos endorses.
I have never done an endorsement for Daily Kos, and there's good reason for that.
Everyone needs to know what you meant by the deep trolling of calling out the Bernie Briss.
All right, let's explain that. And on Twitter, when I do most of my Twitter on my phone,
yes,
and occasionally I will have a typo.
Unbelievable. I'm sorry.
All right, and I've used the phrase Bernie Bros, which is banned at Daily Kos. You cannot say Bernie Bros.
Is that right?
At Daily Kos. That's correct.
Oops, okay. Well, I haven't had occasion to do it.
So I don't say it at Daily Kos, and I've just said it on this radio show, but just as a description.
Yes.
And what I'm saying about the so-called anti-Semitic Bernie Briss. First of all, I don't even understand it. How is having a Briss an issue?
We don't know.
I'm not going to go Trump on you and tell you that my oldest daughter is Jewish, but it so happens my oldest daughter is Jewish.
Oh,
so there you go.
So you're a billionaire,
and not Ivanka Jewish. As Grammy Hall said in Annie Hall. My eldest daughter is a real Jew.
Okay.
Not one of these conversion types.
Wow.
So, but that's obviously meaningless. I could be anti-Semitic if I had 15 Jewish children. But the point being is, it was a typo. Everybody who's honest about it knows it's a typo.
I'm not sure what would be wrong with the Bernie Briss. Quite honestly, but
I think the phrase was the Bernie Bros will kill Bernie or destroy Bernie.
Oh, I see.
So, and what I was saying is the behavior of his supporters are going to cause him serious harm.
Not that people would be opposed to him because he was circumcised, or so.
As opposed to having had a bris being what's going to kill him.
Yeah,
it wasn't. Mind you, I think I don't even remember when I wrote that. It was, I think, a couple of years ago. I don't even understand.
When was Bernie's bris? That was a couple of years ago.
Well, Bernie's bris was 77 years ago, and in fact, somebody, a good friend of mine, responded, and it's part of the whole discussion. And I laughed at his joke. He said, well, I didn't kill. He said, it hasn't done anything to him in 77 years, so I doubt it's going to kill him now.
Right, it's just
and I
catching
laughed
up.
at that because he's making fun of my typo.
Yes.
That's what I was laughing about. By the way, he's Jewish, and he's a friend of mine. So there again, I even have a Jewish friend.
So you're in the clear now.
I'm totally in the clear now.
One of my best friends is whatever I'm in trouble with.
Exactly. So, just for clarification's sake, it was a typo.
Yes. Well,
because it doesn't really make sense otherwise if you look at that.
No,
and just on the use of the F word.
Oh, right. That's where which was really the other
controversy.
The major complaint.
It was a joke. I was responding to a person. To a person who responded to my tweet saying, Hillary will never F you, which,
I see.
By the way, is sexist and offensive if you want to get technical, but it's just some rando. And what did I do? I made a joke out of it. I said, no, but I'm going to F Bernie, as in Karl Rove F, as in when Karl Rove said, we will F him. We will F him like he's never been F'd before. It was a joke.
Okay.
If maybe it was a Bill Maher joke and I should apologize for the joke. I don't know.
I don't think it's going to.
But it was a joke, obviously.
I gotcha.
I don't want to literally F Bernie.
Even though he's had a bris. This is...
it's like saying M-effer. I'm not literally calling
not certain that happened to
someone
his mother.
who literally F'd his mother. I'm not saying that. I'm saying... you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure
it's
anymore.
a pejorative.
Yes, well,
there's a. I think I can say this on radio.
I don't know.
In Spanish, there's a phrase called "hijo de la gran puta."
Okay, well that you can say because we know what it means.
And that means.
I got the last part.
I
got you now.
You are the son of a big whore.
Yes.
Now, when you say it in Spanish, you're not literally calling the man's the man's mother a whore. It's like son of a bitch.
Yes, I see.
It doesn't mean the literal words. It's just a pejorative.
An idiomatic
when someone calls
expression.
me an a-hole, I don't think they're literally calling me
that. Yeah, right. You're what a sphincter you are.
I mean, I'm not. I am a figurative a-hole, but I don't think that I'm literally that. So this is just a game. They know all this.
Sure.
The person who wrote that, the people who are pretending to believe that, it's just complete nonsense. It's complete dishonesty, and I'm not going to treat it seriously because it's not a serious thing. I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to pretend I'm going to take this seriously. It's not serious. It's primary season, and that's fine.
And I suppose it'll work out, too. I don't anticipate it leading to anything, but, for context of this other person,
I mean, honestly, sometimes you got to make businesses. I always thought this, though. And if confront us, I would say to Marcus the following. I said, listen, look at all the traffic I brought to the site. But they could have been yelling at me on Twitter. Instead, they brought it to Daily Kos, and look at all the people that came to read the site and come vote in the poll, the straw poll and everything else. So you should be thanking me.
I guess so.
I don't know if he's going to buy that, but
I don't know. I don't know whether it's going to come to the point that he's going to have to buy anything. I think what I was explaining yesterday is even if this were to come to a head somehow, it would come to a head in the context, as Marcos understands it, of this is what happens during primary seasons. And during every primary season we've had since the beginning of the site, we've had something like this during which a significant faction have insisted that they will leave the site and boycott it forever. And it's always ended up working out, A, just fine, and B, usually to the advantage of the growth in readership, though that may be attributable to the fact that we're talking about a very interesting thing about which everyone wants to talk. So who knows? But Marcos's experience over the last decade and a half, and I guess approaching 2, has been, this is what happens. Every once in a while, a significant chunk of people say, that's it! I'm starting the daily, whatever my name is, and that'll be that, and you'll all be sorry. And that only leads to eye rolls, perhaps uproarious laughter occasionally. At
this point, it does.
Not much else. So we're not at that point yet.
The original pie fight, just for history's sake.
Oh, yeah. I want to address
actually
that
involved a pie.
Well, yes, a picture of a pie.
Picture of a pie.
And it occurred to me the other day, I mean, I guess for anybody who missed that and doesn't know, it was the display ad that showed up back in the early advertising days at Daily Kos.
Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, I don't remember what they were advertising, but it was using a photo
it was the new
of
Gilligan's Island. They were rebooting
right?
Gilligan's Island, and the
that was
ad,
a success.
They had the girls having a pie fight.
Yes, Ginger and Marianne having a pie fight, and it was a sexist image. And I think the fight was, should Daily Kos be accepting revenue from an advertiser using a blatantly sexist image to do its advertising? And it was mostly like, I don't know, who cares, versus we got money and we didn't have to ask you for it. I don't even remember how it came out. Everybody, although it occurred to me again when I used the term again, I'm like, oh, maybe we should find a new term, because the term itself now conjures sexist imagery and or belittles the complaint, which, I mean, on the question of whether or not the image was sexist, there was a serious complaint. The question of whether or not people displaying it bore any particular responsibility for it was a separate question, but a good one. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it's dismissive of the issue.
That was beyond the pale. Actually, I thought what made the whole episode bad was, frankly, Marcus had an unfortunate comment about the discussion that was belittling.
Oh.
I don't know if you recall.
I'm trying to blot it out at this point, but yeah.
Women's Studies.
Yeah, okay, right. Now I remember. And so that terminology itself may be in fact loaded and shouldn't be used because
that was
it's dismissive of the complaint, which wasn't the majest, wasn't the biggest complaint ever here, but it was, but it wasn't a good one.
He apologized for saying that, and I think that should have been the end of it.
Yeah.
Of course, that's when that was the first so-called "I'm leaving this site to create the new daily whatever," and somebody did.
Yeah, and I don't know. I have a feeling there was some before that.
Somehow everything kept going, and we survived. And as you said, it's a 4-year cycle, at least when there's a Democratic primary, which there has been in 3 of the last 4 cycles. And that's just the way it is. And then we'll have it again. And it's funny, though, because my reputation precedes me. I don't actually engage in pie fights anymore at Daily Kos because I just chose not to. And frankly, out of respect to Marcus, when he asked me back, he said, just cool it. And
that was the answer. Oh, okay.
And I've cooled it at Daily Kos. I don't cool it on Twitter. I think of that as my place. I'm not representing Daily Kos there. I happen to be someone whose name's there. Your name's there, too, by the way, on this masthead. And there's 8 million other people. By the way, there's other people on that masthead. This is what's funny about this.
Yeah.
Who are much more scathing to Bernie on Twitter than I am.
That's probably
I'm not going to name their names because I don't want them to become targets. I just think it's a funny thing, And in that sense, I made my bed in that sense of the way I behaved for the first 8 years at Daily Kos, and that's the cross I've chosen to bear. But it's not, to me, it's not a serious or honest complaint about anything, and. I just don't think that unless Marcus takes that step and says everybody whose name's on the masthead, you can't say certain things on Twitter. And I think there's like 60 people on the masthead now, because this is a huge organization now, relatively speaking. Mm-hmm. Back then it was 7-10 of us, right?
Right.
15 at the most at some point. And, it was just us having fun. There wasn't even money involved. There was nothing. Nobody was working. You and I still don't.
Yeah.
Well, I know you. Thank God you do because you're supposed to. But I don't make any money out of this. It's just but I enjoy having the freedom to write something if something strikes me.
Yeah, I imagine he'll do
Sundays
everything he can
and have
to
it
avoid
posted
that.
on the front page of Daily Kos so it gets attention.
Yeah.
That's a huge perk, and I enjoy it and I respect it. And I'm going to keep my behaviors that people don't like on Twitter and out of Daily Kos.
All right. Well, I think that's a respectable position to take. I think Marcos, my understanding, would be loath to change any of that, and he's certainly not going to tell people what they can and can't say on other platforms, and would be very reluctant to say I have to police what you have. He doesn't want that job. Anyway, thank you for explaining it.
Yes.
And we'll move on to a couple
Joe
other.
comes and you can have an actual discussion about activities that actually matter.
That was very meta segment, and so we got to have one of those every once in a while. Thanks for clearing it up.
Go now, and
okay.
hopefully Joan will join you now.
Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Daily Kos Radio, and it really was Daily Kos Radio there for a while. Very meta section, but it was a big deal yesterday. It's Daily Kos Radio. There's no reason you can't dedicate some time to that, but we do probably have some other more substantive things to address. Joan is here. Hi, Joan. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
All right. We're enjoying some winter weather here today. Not making much of a difference in the broadcast. Are you?
Woke
Okay.
up to about 3 inches.
Okay. Well, there's a little dusting of snow there. I'm hoping everything clears up. My wife's in Utah today. I hope she can make it back. So
yeah.
That I don't know what the conditions are.
The region is being hit, but she should be okay.
Okay.
Depends on where she's at in Utah, I guess.
Salt Lake City area. So I imagine there's lots of salt to put on the road. Should be fine.
They know how to deal with stuff at the airport there, so I wouldn't worry.
I figure,
yeah, the yard guy's coming over in a couple of hours to
all right.
help
clear things out so you can, I don't know what. I don't know. But anyway, all right. So now we got the weather chat out of the way. We got the Armando chat out of the way. I think we're on track here. And in one thing I wanted to mention, just saw a flyby extraneous to this, everyone chatting this morning about, so it looks like the Covington Catholic kids are going to be suing the Washington Post. Excited for that. They're going to sue for $250,000 in damages for, I'm not certain. Have you read the story yet or heard the story yet? Why they're suing?
I saw the same tweet. I think probably you did.
Okay.
Defamation or something.
Why the Post?
Because they were there wearing their MAGA hats. The liberal Washington Post is defaming them.
Okay. I think
was
had
the sense I got from the tweet.
I see Alan Dershowitz had to comment on it. As the Hill's reporting that he says they have a reasonable case against the Washington Post. So there's Alan Dershowitz inserting himself into the news with nonsense again. And all right, well, we'll see where that goes. They got the splashy headline out of it. That's not the most important thing in the world, but noted. We'll keep an eye on it. What's happening on your end today? I see it's a busy morning, but not so much because of the news as the personnel issues. But okay.
Yes. As
people
always,
with scratchy throats in the morning.
When one of management's gone and the rest of us have to step up, it just gets a little complicated.
Yeah. Well, the weather will do that. It's 60 one day and 20 the next, and it makes people sick.
Yeah.
Well,
it's kind of nuts.
Yeah. We're all being affected by climate change. It's always been like this, really, honestly. Okay. Well, what's happening there? What's on the radar? It's been a while since we've had you in, too. There's been a lot of... you were out for a little bit. Others were out before then. You had to cover for...
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's on the plate this morning?
Today is sort of catch up from yesterday. We had just an onslaught of small, big, many Trump-Russia stories.
Yeah, right.
Trump, of course, is swallowing up everything. Mark Sumner has a nice sort of wrap-up
I should take a look.
on the front page right now. The question has not been answered. Is Donald Trump a Russian agent?
Oh.
Sort of trying to think about all of the things that we saw yesterday. I think for many of us that question has been answered.
Yeah.
But I guess in terms of, has it legally been answered? Has it been proven without a doubt? We can't say it. What we can say is that Putin's probably pretty happy watching things unfold from his spot in the Kremlin.
Yeah, I mean, even if he doesn't actually gain anything in particular, just having America tie itself in knots is a positive outcome. Just get out of our way. We can at least achieve small bore things. The fact that he's also out there allegedly telling people, I believe Putin about this, that, and the other thing, that's just gravy, I guess.
I guess.
So is Trump a Russian agent? And that'll be interesting to answer, and I guess everyone will have a different answer depending on, can you be an unwitting agent? Can you just be, that be just sort of an asset? Is it an agent? Does that imply a positive pro-Russian agenda, and I make Russia my priority? I don't know. See how
asset versus agent.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It's like asking collusion versus I don't know what conspiracy, but I suppose it's just a semantic difference at this point. But
it's going to be an important one. It's illegal. Hopefully we'll get to the legal stage. Hopefully we'll get to the point where we have impeachment hearings.
Great. Yes. Sure. I'd love it. I don't mind. I do think that there's, even if you never get to the point where he is consciously signed on as a contracted agent, I think there's plenty of room as a developed asset to do enough damage to get yourself in major legal trouble. And I'd love for it to be brought to, I'd love for to see him answer for it. So.
Yes. See, that's the thing. Is he a clear and present danger to the United States?
That's a yes.
Beyond Russia. Yeah. Really. And
that's only part of the list.
I think he is.
I agree. I'm certain most people listening also agree, and I don't think it ends with Russia, and I don't know that you have to establish that he's a Russian agent. Just the fact that he's not got the interests of the United States first in mind is a problem. Even if his interest is entirely in himself, then that just means highest bidder wins, and it's not always going to be the United States. And,
precisely.
We need to know if we're
beyond those questions, there are the 25th Amendment kind of questions.
Yeah, true.
Is he, as a person, is he fit for the job? Does he have the mental stability, the physical stamina, the basic ability to be president? And is he healthy? Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's not.
No.
So, well,
he's also not 6'2".
Or 3 anyway. He says
3.
He may be 6'2".
3.
Possibly.
He gained another inch.
Yeah. He started on that one last year. I think the theory was 6'3" meant that at 239 pounds he wouldn't be classified as obese. That's out the window now, unless if the only way out of it this time, I think they might have been able to get away with it if they said, well, he grew again. He's 6'4" now, 243. Another generous estimate, I think. Although that is an actual serious issue that once again, getting doctors to possibly lie about your
something
basic health.
As publicly evident as your height?
I guess so. It's always been a matter of some interpretation. People are going to interpret things differently, but now I think we have the tools to actually, figure that out. Like people with lasers could be sitting in the audience and say, I know exactly how tall he is.
At any rate,
yes,
the crazy thing that we know our president is doing this morning is,
what's up?
Thanks to the Washington Post, raging about DNI Dan Coats, Director of National Intelligence.
Yeah.
He's apparently been stewing over Coats for months now.
Over Coats. That's good. All right. Well, because he's doing his job, Coats?
Because he's doing his job. It
started
apparently back with the Aspen Summit last summer.
Okay.
When Coates found out as he was sitting on stage with Andrea Mitchell that Trump was inviting Putin to the U.S. for another summit.
Right, yes.
And Coates being
what?
a little bemused, shocked, horrified that this was happening without his knowledge, his prior knowledge, was very candid about certain things. For example, the fact that in the Helsinki summit, Trump insisted on meeting with Putin one-on-one.
Right.
Actually, not one-on-one. They had their translators there.
Yeah.
But notes were taken on the American side. And when Mitchell asked if it was possible that Putin recorded the meeting, Coates said, yeah, it's entirely possible.
Sure.
That apparently really enraged Trump.
Oh, well.
Because he thought Coates was trying to embarrass him in front of all of these important national security types at the
didn't have to try.
Summit.
Yeah.
It didn't help when last month Coates and CIA Director Haspel testified to Congress that the intelligence assessment they had just done contradicted most of what Trump says about national security. Like, we don't have a crisis at the border. Like, ISIS hasn't been defeated. Like, North Korea is not being a particularly helpful player right now. All of these things that Trump prides himself on, that he's made policy out of, were denied by the intelligence folks.
Right.
He's not happy about that, and it looks as though Coates might be the next person, the next grown-up who is tossed out of the administration.
Yeah,
Which has Susan Collins very concerned.
Oh, no, not concerned. Where would she find that emotion? I don't know if that's in her repertoire. I don't think she does anything else, but okay, as long as she's concerned, that's nice. Yeah, he may be on the way out simply for, like everybody else, simply for answering questions with the obvious, the only viable answer that you could possibly give in a situation like that. Is it possible that Putin recorded the meeting? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
How do you say no? No.
Probably even likely.
It's not. Yeah. Right. That's true.
Also,
he didn't even bother saying that.
Possibility that we have somehow obtained that recording.
True. It's possible. I guess anything's possible. But I mean, that would be the obvious thing to do. In fact, the fact that we know that Trump, maybe we didn't know it at the time, but Trump has, didn't he confiscate any notes? Was that the meeting at which he would have confiscated the notes of any of the that the translator had, or did he insist that they not take any to begin with? But he had to go out of his way to make sure that there was no record on our side, which only means that I guess the default procedure is that everybody would take notes and record.
Yeah.
He went out of his way not to, and he's not Putin, so I don't see any reason why Putin would avoid it. There's nothing he has to do. You could put everything he said on the record and publish it in Russia. It still wouldn't make a difference. He'll kill you if you think it's bad.
Right.
So I don't know.
There's not much you can do about that.
Right. So he's got nothing but to do but use it against Americans. Unless he's trying to conserve paper.
Just one more out of control, scary thing. Because who knows who we end up with at DNI?
Yeah, acting DNI.
Mick Mulvaney.
Right. It's his turn at that, too. He's got a hit for the cycle. Nobody has ever occupied all of the cabinet positions under a single administration before, so I guess that's something to go for. But I guess that also means we end up with another acting officer. I don't know. Does it make a difference at some point? Does the Republican Senate ever stop confirming Trump appointees out of outrage at how he's handling the appointments process? I don't think so. I don't think that's what does it, but do they run out of time to deal with these things?
And Trump has said he prefers to have acting people.
Yes.
Because he thinks that they will be more loyal to him because he holds more leverage over them.
Right. And that was the third unknown scandal from the roundup that Chuck Todd did this morning. Things we might have missed. The Education Department's issue with their acting inspector general, once again exercising that same, or attempting to exercise that discretion. So because you're an acting inspector general, it's easier to fire you if you don't back off of this investigation of Betsy DeVos.
Right.
Oh, okay. I don't know if it worked. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
I
it's
haven't
really
seen the
easier
outcome
to
of
follow.
that one yet. Just that it was.
It's there
being talked about yesterday.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. He may be wrong about that as well. That it's easier to fire acting people. It might normally be in a normal administration where you have cause to do that, but now everything is viewed with great suspicion, and you can get almost anybody to open an investigation into any firing if you have any grounds on which to claim that Trump did it out of a sense of retribution. Everyone will believe that now. It might have been hard in the past.
Right.
Interesting.
And it still won't make any difference to Mitch McConnell.
No, he's got an easy job now. He's an executive branch employee. So, makes things simple.
Who is using the fact that he's married to the transportation secretary, apparently, to great personal benefit.
Yeah, well,
we had that story yesterday as well, courtesy Politico, which has reported on a study or an analysis or a FOIA request from, I'm trying to remember the name of the organization, a watchdog group.
Yeah, I was
that
looking at it
looked
yesterday.
into the requests that McConnell had made to the transportation secretary, his wife, Elaine Chao, for meetings from people who are buddies of theirs in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And it's American Oversight is the watchdog group.
Okay.
They found more than 800 emails back and forth between McConnell's office and Chao's office, and saw a pattern of McConnell requesting meetings for people who include former staffers of his and campaign donors of his.
Yes.
With Chao. Many of the meetings then being taken, and many of the grant requests for infrastructure projects being granted.
Right. Now it's interesting that they chose to actually have that conversation in email. I guess it shows that they're not embarrassed by it at all. They could easily have done this at home verbally, I think.
Right.
I assume they share a home. I don't really have any idea, quite honestly, what their relationship is like, but I got no reason to think that they don't. So, I mean, I assume that his comeback to this is, yeah, sure. I mean, I make requests of the office all the time, and I assume I get somewhat special treatment. I'm her husband.
The response was, quote, the leader regularly advocates for Kentuckians with members of the cabinet and agencies of the federal government. What we don't know, because they haven't done the study, is how effective he is with other agencies.
Right. Well, he may be very effective with other agencies too.
But transportation is particularly a helpful one because it's money to the state. It's projects. It's transportation projects, direct money.
Yeah. Well,
you
that's why she wanted
barrel
that job.
Back home.
Yeah. That's the job. The transportation secretary gets to give out an awful lot of big grants that are very splashy because, building new roadways or transportation infrastructure affects actual people, and they delight in seeing them built for the most part. It's a very plum job, and she probably could have had any other job she wanted, but that's an easy one, relatively non-controversial, and it's all about giving away money, and your husband's a senator, and the more money you give away in your state, the better the chances are that he stays a senator, and therefore is busy during the day and can't bother you. So it's a good deal for Elaine Chao.
If I was with Mitch McConnell, that would be a primary consideration. I would think.
You want things to go that way. Yeah, I think I wondered whether they'll eventually skate on this. And McConnell, and I don't know how great Chao is at it. She's got some government experience. I think they know what they need to do to walk the line and not find themselves charged with anything.
I think so too, probably.
So in this instance, they'll probably get away with it. Whether or not her husband gets away with the whole espionage part, I don't know.
Yeah, that's slightly more serious.
Yes.
That not just ignoring, but actually working against the intelligence community in 2016 when they were trying to point out that Trump was being helped by Russia.
Yes.
That's kind of a bigger issue.
Yeah, and no one's forgetting that, and it gets discussed every couple of days by a new crowd, and I think Jennifer Rubin
which is important.
Discussing it yesterday.
It's really important because Mitch McConnell at this point, I consider as much a danger to the nation as maybe even more so than Trump.
As the enabler. Yeah.
As the enabler, because the assault on the Constitution is coming from McConnell.
Yeah.
He can stop this.
It's up to him. He's
got the power. He's ceding it. And in ceding his personal power to Trump, he's ceding the power of the Congress.
Yeah. It's important things, important checks on the power of the presidency supposed to be dependent on the idea that no one would give away their power. He loves. I don't think anybody is convinced that. One thing Mitch McConnell doesn't really care about a lot is power. He's been pretty open about his interest in it, but it's interesting though that I guess he's making the deal. If I cede my constitutional power, at least here in this instance, and I guess it doesn't mean that all majority leaders forever have to. Although I'm sure Trump believes that that's the case. He's just trading it for a different kind of power. I'll do whatever you want. And this is, I guess, where the relationship with Chao perhaps becomes important. Why would he give away so much power if it's not in the interest of funneling as much federal money as he can back to the states so he can win his reelection and become a more powerful person under a normal president later?
Right. It's also a matter of personal power versus Article 1 power. He's far more concerned about personal power, by all appearances, than the institution. So every time you see anybody call him a great institutionalist, that's the one that really makes my head explode. Yeah.
Well, that's an excellent point, too. And a good way of it's an interesting parallel that he has with Trump. It's Trump. Why would Trump cede power, American power, to Putin? Well, only in exchange for personal power, cash, money, influence, world fame. I don't know what motivates him. He's a fairly weird guy. Money seems to be his motivator, but then he doesn't have any every once in a while, and I don't know what's happening.
Money and prestige.
Yes, covering things in gold. That's his thing.
And getting a Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, wow, yeah. Well, that's the big prestige. the sort of thing that previously he probably thought he couldn't buy, and now realizes that he can, and so he will put it on his shelf. It's better. It's better even than getting a 6-star Diamond Award rating for your hotel from what's his name, Joey No Socks Cinque.
Do we know whether or not Japan actually did send the letter? They're not saying, are they?
They are. The government has responded, and I think they've acknowledged having done this thing. The prime minister says, we sent that letter. No one knows why, and his government is upset with him, thinks it's a big embarrassment for Japan. But
yes,
it kind of is. And he, too, engaged in the same sort of a game, I think. He's probably saying, will I suffer personal embarrassment in order to increase our leverage with the idiot American president? Yes, I think we can he might even think we can get something good for Japan out of this. Or he may just, in the end, be as corrupt as Donald Trump is and just be interested in, I just want to stay prime minister for as long as I can. And I don't know whether he's getting rich off of it or not, but I think he may be in the same situation. So apparently, yes, he did do it. All the government will say is the prime minister was asked to do it, which I think is unusual, and he said yes.
Yeah.
So
apparently, did you see the news yesterday afternoon that the Nobel Committee has, in what seems to be unprecedented, actually released information saying they've received 2 forged letters?
I didn't see that. I think that's a world record.
Yes.
Probably.
Usually this whole process is extremely secretive and they don't talk about it, but they referred to the FBI 2 fraudulent letters requesting Trump's nomination.
Yeah. I did. I saw that, and it was interesting that they chose to refer that to the FBI. I assume that means that they think it came from the United States. It's a good bet.
Good bet.
And I'm dying to know, and they won't say this, who did this person impersonate?
I know. It's got to be.
I'd love to know.
Former Nobel Prize winners.
Yes.
I guess you're not a former Nobel Prize winner, are you?
I don't know.
If you've gotten it, you've got it.
Right.
And you're always a Nobel Prize holder.
Right.
University professors.
Heads of state, apparently.
Heads of state, yeah. So
it's a limited pool of eligible nominators, and I'm just curious who he chose. And I'd love to know, because I would tell us so much. Did they go big and pretend,
Is it
hello,
Obama?
This is Queen Elizabeth, right? Yeah, Obama. Hi, everybody. Did he do that, or did he go, obscure, like who'll check to see whether I am? I don't know. I mean, if I say a name, then you'll say, who the hell are you talking about? So what's the point?
I would love to know who it was.
Yeah. Well, apparently they're not allowed to say, but maybe in the context of an FBI investigation, we will eventually find out. Let's subpoena that. That's the important part. All right. Well, it's a wild time out there. I can only imagine what you're in for today.
Well, in the last few minutes, I want to highlight something that we released yesterday.
Okay. Oh, yes, please.
We've been working with Civics, the polling firm that Marcos sort of thought up and that has now grown into an independent, real pollster. It's very cool. Very cool. All online. If you haven't signed up to be one of the Civics poll takers, you can do that.
Oh.
Just go to Civics, CIVIQS.com and sign up. The polls are very fun to take. But we released yesterday our first monthly tracking poll with Civics. And the highlights include 50% saying climate change is extremely urgent.
Yes.
The 27 tax law is underwater at 18%.
Okay.
The wealth tax Elizabeth Warren is proposing is up 11%. And 36% of the people who have private health insurance support single payer.
Pretty good. All right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so we're gonna keep doing this every month and keep track of that.
Excellent. Well, we've always enjoyed our entry into issues polling and policy questions. An important part of polling that doesn't get covered often enough, and so I guess Marcos just said, "Well, I got an idea about how we can make sure that happens."
Yeah.
Important, and it's fun to see the data generated by a Daily Kos originated operation have an impact on the way politics is reported in this country, just like the Daily Kos elections section. Daily Kos itself. It's always interesting when we make an impact in how the news gets reported.
Absolutely.
So thanks for bringing that to our attention. I didn't know you could sign up to participate in those polls. That is interesting.
Yes.
Too. All right.
Yes.
Well, go ahead and do that, everyone.
By email. Everybody do it.
Okay. I think it's a great recommendation. Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it, and we need to make that shift from the meta to the news again. Thanks for doing it, and hopefully we'll have you on board next Wednesday as well.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, take care.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Stay tuned for all the stories we didn't get to cover here on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Justice Putnam. Next, I'm going to skip down here to some of the stuff we might not have heard about yet. A Catholic mom sues after a Trump-backed foster care agency calls her the wrong kind of Christian. Clarence Thomas has declared a new war against the very idea of a free press.